Good evening and welcome to Mello TV. I'm your host, Nicole Hales. Thank you for joining us for this evening's discussion as we continue to look at the findings and break down the numbers of our Mello TV poll conducted by pollster and Chief Executive Officer of Johnson Survey Research Limited, Bill Johnson. We will this evening look at the Jamaican people who told us who would do a better job as Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness or Dr. Peter Phillips or Peter Bunting. Also joining in the discussion are political analyst Paul Bourne and political commentator Linton Gordon. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Nicole.
Good evening.
Bill, let's start with you. Who do the Jamaican people say would do a better job as Prime Minister, Andrew Holness or Peter Phillips?
Okay, well, 70% said Andrew Holness, 12% said Peter Phillips, 15% were undecided, and 3% refused. Now, if you look at the numbers in terms of those who voted for the JLP in 2016, 95% are supporting Holness, 1% Phillips. However, if you look at those who voted for the PNP in 2016, a plurality, 42%, are actually saying Holness would do a better job. 34% say Phillips would do a better job. 22% are undecided. And in terms of those who didn't vote in 2016, 74% say Holness would do a better job, 6% Phillips, and 17% undecided. So it's interesting that Peter Phillips is underwater, so to speak, with the 2016 PNP voters at this point, where Holness, as I say, is getting a plurality over him, 42% to 34%.
Looking at the numbers, the Prime Minister is ahead of Dr. Phillips, even among the 2016 voters who voted for the PNP. What are your thoughts on this, Linton?
Well, it's a clear indication that Dr. Peter Phillips is not sufficiently popular to attract vote support to become the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And if he accepts the result of this poll, if he accepts these figures, where in particular more of the persons who voted for his party in 2016 believe that Andrew Holness is doing and will do a better job at prime ministership than he will, then that's a clear indication that even within his party, the present prime minister is preferred over him. And that is a clear and unambiguous message to Dr. Peter Phillips to say that he is not garnering sufficient support to become Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Paul, your thoughts?
I like the figures, and I want to begin with the undecided voters. 74% of those who did not vote the last time said that they like the job of the current Prime Minister. That is an indication of something which is actually happening, and we need to address that. Now, if it is that the current Prime Minister is seen that favorable by those who are undecided and did not vote the last election, this could mean worse than problems for Dr. Peter Phillips, because, as Linton said, the PNP is clearly not attracting its base, but also not attracting its base. The PNP is not appealing to the general public that is out there, and that is an indication that something is wrong with the current leader of the opposition, Dr. Peter Phillips.
Gentlemen, I want to follow up. Of the persons in 2016 who did not vote in that election, 74% say Mr. Holness would do a better job as Prime Minister. Is that number surprising or expected? And what does this say regarding the job, the current Prime Minister, and the capability of Dr. Phillips to do a better job than Holness?
Okay, I think the
Paul,
first
you
thing
first.
No, those figures are astounding. I'm totally surprised by the numbers, because what it means that those who did not vote the last election are always the bystanders. They are the swing voters. And if so many of them, you're talking about almost 7 out of every 10, are saying Andrew Holness is doing a better job. This is indicating to you not only the attractiveness of the GLP and by extension the Prime Minister, but in terms of what they are doing. People have now felt what it is that they are doing, including where the country is going, how they dealt with the COVID scenario, and all of that is an indication and an indictment on the leader of the opposition that is unable to even garner in his own party a better base than we are seeing there. And I'm surprised by the figures.
Linton?
Yes, I think we have to go back to basic, that no matter how unpopular one of these two parties is, there is always a base that they have never fallen below. Whether in 1976 in the case of the JLP or in 1980 in the case of the PNP, there's a number that they never fall below. Where concern should be given now to these numbers is not only the undecided, several of whom will continue to be undecided and will not vote. Because if you look at all the elections we have had, a significant number of persons do not vote. The area of concern is when your base has lost confidence in you, or as much as 42% of them. Or put another way, your popularity is less in the base than the popularity of your opponent. That is what is happening to Dr. Phillips, and that's a message. He perhaps needs to sit down to look at these numbers and to be guided.
Still on the undecided voters, of the persons who voted for the JLP 3% and those who voted for the PNP 22%, how much of these numbers are showing confidence in either men that they would do a better job as leader of the country? Still with you, Linton.
Well, the fact that Phillips is in opposition and is looking the job, seeking to get the job, and 22% of his supporters are undecided, it does not send a positive message for him. On the other side, the undecided for Holness is only 3%. He can live with that. But Peter is heading for a quarter, almost 25% of his support base, and another 34% are not positive for him. Those are frightening figures.
Paul, what say you?
No, the figures that we are seeing here, the 22% versus the 3%, are not only the base of the PNP and the JLP, but voters in general, in terms of those who voted for the JLP and those who voted for the PNP, not necessarily the base. So that is indicating to you that all the persons who voted a particular way the last time, whether it's for the JLP or the PNP, are satisfied or dissatisfied. Now that 22% in terms of those who voted for the PNP is a clear indication of the unfavorability in terms of those persons as how they see Peter Phillips. And we need to understand clearly here, it does not mean Peter Phillips as the opposition leader, it means Peter Phillips as the Prime Minister. And people are saying they do not see him doing a better job. And even among those persons who are PNP, the fact that 34% of them say that he could do a better job, that in itself says, listen, is not a viable alternative for Prime Minister of Jamaica, particularly compared to that of Andrew Holness.
Bill, let's look at the numbers for Andrew Holness and Peter Bunting. Who the people say would do a better job of being Prime Minister?
Okay, well, 63% say Andrew Holness would do a better job. 18% say Peter Bunting. 2% refuse. Now, once again, looking inside the numbers, those who voted for the JLP, 90% are selecting are selecting Andrew Holness. Those who voted for the PNP, 34% still say Holness, 46% are saying Peter Bunting, 19% are undecided, and those who didn't vote, 64%, or almost two-thirds, are saying Andrew Holness, 13% and 20% undecided. So that although Bunting is at least getting a plurality of the PNP voters, Holness is still capturing a third of the voters. We have an expression where I come from that if you drowned in 10 feet of water, you're still as dead as if you drowned in 8 feet of water. And I mean, in both cases, regardless of who it is, if it's Bunting or Phillips, the party is in very, very bad shape, at least in terms of these numbers.
Linton and Paul, you hear the numbers, 63% for Holness, 18% for Bunting. What do you make of these numbers? Linton, let's start with you.
One has to read Bunting's number differently. And the reason for that is that he has not been leader of the opposition and has never been prime minister. He's a contender, a new person to the job. And the way to look at this is that he has more potential than Dr. Peter Phillips, who has been in the job going 4 years now. And therefore, one has to look at an outsider who, having dipped into the fray or the competition, has garnered more initial support than the incumbent. It has to be initial because it's only last year he indicated that he wishes to become the leader of the PNP, and therefore one has to keep that balance and that fairness and that objectivity at looking at him versus Peter Phillips against Holness, and that has to be borne in mind.
Paul?
No, what I want to look at is the number of votes for Holness compared to the number of votes for Peter Bunting. And the figures are almost 4 times more. The Prime Minister is 4 times more likely to get out ahead of Peter Bunting. And this is an indication to me that Jamaicans are saying Andrew is clearly just doing an excellent job. And irrespective of who Andrew is stocked up against, whether it is Bunting or Peter Phillips, he will, in a race superior to those of his competitors, clearly a Bolt versus a Paul Bone in a race, and Paul Bone is unable to run. So this is exactly what is happening. So it is not that just people are saying Peter Bunting is better than Peter Phillips. They are saying compared to that of Andrew, Andrew is 4 times better in terms of perceived perception of Jamaicans, in terms of doing better. And this is an indictment on the People's National Party.
Let's break down the numbers further. The JLP voters in 2016 election, 90% say Holness would do a better job than Bunting, while 46% of the voters in the 2016 election, that's PNP voters rather, say Bunting would do a better job than Andrew Holness. Looking at the difference, how does this reflection on Bunting, with under 50% of his party voters expressing confidence in him doing a better job over Holness? Paul, let's start with you.
No, but what I want to look at is the number of the JLP voters compared to the number of PNP. We need to actually sort of make a comparison across the spectrum and not necessarily simply. It means that the JLP is energized and the PNP are still left wanting a leader. Now, the fact that it say that 46% say that Peter will do a better job than Holness, that is an indication to you that Holness is still superior to that of Bunting, as it relates to what? The winnability or that of a Prime Minister. That should not be, because although the Prime Minister is doing an excellent job, your base or those persons who voted for the party in the 2016 election should not be that off key. So for that to be happening is a clear indication that even among the People's National Party voters, or the base, if you want to go that far, they do not see the PNP as a good alternative to the JLP, and even furthermore, a good prime minister's material than that of the current prime minister.
Linton, quickly your response.
Yeah, I don't think we should speak of comparing parties and comparing leaders. People ask about specific individuals, and they responded in accordance to the poll that Bill administered. And we have to respect the statistics. They made responses regarding 3 individuals, 2 being compared with 1. It is very important to understand that expressing admiration for an individual doesn't automatically lead to supporting a party. There are several, and there are still several members of the JLP who admire Portia Simpson, but they have never voted for the PNP. And when you had polls showing Portia exceptionally popular, those persons still voted for their party. So we should be careful not to conclude from an assessment of individuals that it by automatic step will lead to support for a party. And I think Bill made that clear earlier when he answered that he asked specific questions. And we have to comment and be guided by the answer to these questions and not to extend it to another meaning which Bill never garnered nor received from the survey. The question asked is who is believed to be a better person. And Holness is seen to be better because I believe he's accepted by the vast majority of Jamaicans to be doing a very good job now. But to extend that to say that it's a widespread preference to the JLP, you'd be surprised to know that the JLP might not be enjoying 90% preference in Jamaica. So what do you do at that stage? So let's be careful how we look at it.
Thank you very much, Linton. Bill, what can we expect come Monday?
Well, I think Monday we'll answer part of Linton's question that he raised. Monday we're looking at the perceptions of the 2 parties, the JLP and the PNP. And also we're looking specifically to see if the PNP's focus on corruption is likely to be a winning strategy or a losing strategy for them. I think people are going to find this, once again, very, very interesting.
And we look forward to having those findings come Monday for the Mello TV poll. This has been this evening's program. Thank you very much. With us this evening was pollster Bill Johnson, who broke down the numbers for us. Also, we had political commentator Linton Gordon and political analyst Paul Bourne. Thank you for joining us. I'm Nicole Hales.
Thank you.
Thank you.